What's up guys? Golden Knight here. Have you ever spent hours drawing, studied references, watched videos, and still feel like your art style is stuck in the same place it was months ago? It's that strange feeling of working really hard but going in circles, as if something invisible is holding you back. And the worst part is, from the outside, it seems like everyone else is improving, except you. In this video, I'm going to show you 7 essential points that explain why your artistic skills aren't improving the way they could be. If you truly understand these points, your approach to studying, practicing, and even how you judge yourself will completely change. The last one tends to be the hardest to accept, but also the most liberating when it finally makes sense. By the way, I have to say, I've been taking the art school for digital artists by Mark Brunette, and honestly, I've never learned so much in such a short time. It's a super complete course, like a condensed art school, focused only on what really matters. Perspective, anatomy, composition, all explained really well. If you want to level up fast, this is the way. Check the first link in the description. Totally worth it. Practicing without a clear goal. Many people think that improving in art is just about drawing every day, as if simply repeating the act were enough. So they sit down, open their sketchbook, do a few random drawings, copy a reference here, invent something there, and call that practice. The problem is, that's not real practice, it's just movement. It's like walking without knowing where you're going. When you practice without a specific goal, your brain goes into autopilot. You repeat the same mistakes, use the same shortcuts, and reinforce the same bad habits. At the end of the day, it feels like you trained a lot, but in reality, you only reinforced what you already know. There was no new learning. Imagine someone who wants to learn how to play the guitar, but spends hours playing the same song over and over. They might gain confidence, but they don't grow technically. It's the same in art. If you don't decide beforehand what you want to improve, your practice becomes a hobby, not study. And the most dangerous part is that this kind of practice creates the illusion of progress. You feel like you're putting in the effort, so you believe improvement should come naturally. When it doesn't, frustration grows and motivation drops. But the problem was never a lack of effort, it was a lack of direction. Which brings us to the next point. Because even when someone tries to study something specific, they often make an even subtler mistake that blocks any real progress. Avoiding discomfort at all costs. There's a quiet pattern that shows up in almost every artist's life. You say you want to improve, but spend most of your time drawing only what you already know how to do. The same angles, the same faces, the same safe poses, the same comfortable style. The problem is that growth lives in discomfort. It's in that feeling of, this looks weird, I don't get this, or this drawing is awful, that your brain starts forming new connections. When you avoid those feelings, you also avoid growth. You get good at looking good, not at actually getting better. Many artists avoid studying perspective, anatomy, or lighting because those areas quickly expose flaws. It's much more comfortable to keep drawing front-facing heads or characters in baggy clothes than to face hands, feet, or bodies in motion. But every one of those escapes is a closed door to the next level. And the cruelest part is that, over time, that comfort becomes a prison. You start defining yourself by what you already know how to do, and you avoid anything that might ruin your image as an artist. And the more time passes, the harder it seems to break free from that place. Drawing a lot, but analyzing nothing. Some artists produce a huge number of drawings but hardly ever improve. The sketchbook fills up, yet the feeling of stagnation remains. That's because drawing alone doesn't guarantee learning. What drives progress is the ability to stop and understand what's happening in your own work. When a drawing goes wrong, most people just close the page and move on to the next one. It's a way to avoid frustration. But every ignored mistake is a wasted lesson. Without analysis, the brain doesn't understand what needs to be fixed, so it repeats the exact same pattern in the next drawing. Analyzing doesn't mean beating yourself up or getting discouraged. It's about asking simple but honest questions. Where did the proportions go wrong? Why does this pose feel stiff? What looks off in this lighting? When you start naming the problem, it stops being a vague monster and becomes something you can actually work on. Compare your drawing to the reference to notice concrete differences. This kind of conscious comparison accelerates learning way more than drawing 10 times without thinking. Without this moment of reflection, you fall into an automatic cycle. Draw, get frustrated, draw again, get frustrated again. Over time, that frustration turns into mental fatigue, and the joy of creating begins to fade. Confusing reference with blind copying. A lot of people believe that using a reference means simply copying an image until it looks the same. So the artist takes a photo, tries to replicate it line by line, shadow by shadow, and when it's done, feels like something was learned. But most of the time, very little was actually learned. The hand got some training, but not the eye. A reference isn't meant to be imitated, it's meant to be understood. When you copy without thinking, your brain isn't engaged in the process. It just becomes a human scanner. The drawing might look nice, but any small change in angle, lighting, or pose makes everything fall apart, because you didn't grasp the structure behind the image. Using reference intelligently means trying to see what's underneath. What simple shapes build this body? Where is the weight being supported? Why is this shadow falling this way? A clear sign of blind copying is when you can only draw well while looking at that specific image. As soon as the reference is gone, your drawing freezes. That shows the information wasn't absorbed, just reproduced. And that creates a false sense of progress that disappears quickly. Constantly comparing yourself to everyone else. At some point, almost every artist falls into the trap of looking at other people's work and using it as a measuring stick for their own worth. You scroll through social media, see incredible drawings, insane techniques, beautiful styles, and suddenly, everything you do feels like garbage. That constant comparison eats you up inside. The problem isn't being inspired by other artists. The problem is forgetting that you're only seeing the final result, not the process. You don't see the years of study or the bad drawings. You're comparing your middle of the journey to someone else's end, and that's never fair. When comparison becomes a habit, it changes your relationship with art. You start drawing to prove something, not to learn. Every mistake becomes a threat to your ego, not an opportunity to grow. And that creates a constant fear of failure that blocks your creativity and your willingness to experiment. Another silent effect of comparison is urgency. You feel like you're behind, like you should be better already, like you've wasted time. That anxiety pushes you to skip important steps, to study advanced things without a foundation, and to abandon fundamentals thinking they're a waste of time. In the end, it only deepens the frustration. The only comparison that truly helps is with your past self at different stages. Looking at old drawings and noticing small improvements creates real motivation. But for that to happen, you need to give yourself time. Studying everything at once, without a foundation. When someone realizes they're not improving, the most common reaction is to want to study everything at once. Actually, thinking about it, the most common reaction is to give up altogether. Studying everything at once is the second most common. The intention is good, but the result is usually the opposite of what's expected. Without a solid foundation, any new knowledge just floats around. It's like trying to memorize words in another language without understanding the grammar. You might recognize a few things, but you can't actually use them. In art, fundamentals exist for a reason. They support everything else. Many artists jump straight into advanced techniques because they seem more exciting. But without understanding form, volume, and structure, those techniques become nothing more than makeup. They might work in one specific drawing, but they don't repeat consistently. This creates a constant feeling of confusion. You study a lot, but it feels like nothing connects. Every new tutorial seems promising, but soon gets lost. And then comes the dangerous thought, maybe I'm just not cut out for this. When in reality, the problem is a lack of structure in your learning. Focusing on one fundamental at a time, even if it feels slow, actually speeds things up later. Clarity builds confidence. And confidence builds consistency. Believing that growth should be fast. The truth is, artistic growth is slow, uneven, and often invisible in day-to-day life. You improve internally before you improve externally. Your eye becomes more critical before your hand can keep up. And that gap creates the feeling that you're getting worse, when in fact you're becoming more aware. Every artist goes through phases where it seems like they've regressed. But that usually means your perception has leveled up. You're starting to see mistakes that used to go unnoticed. It hurts your ego, but it's a sign of real growth. Those who quit at this stage never get to see the leap that comes next. The internet completely distorts this perception. It looks like everyone improves fast, finds their style early, and gets constant results. But when you put everything we've covered so far together, you realize that getting better at art isn't about drawing more. It's about drawing smarter. It's not about speed, it's about direction. It's not about proving yourself, it's about building yourself. And when that mindset shifts, practice stops being a burden and becomes a lighter, more conscious process. If this video helped you in any way, Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next ones. Thanks so much for watching all the way through. Don't forget to take a look at the description. There are several important links there that can help you even more. See you in the next video.